Hello, guys. Hope you're doing well. This is TJ, and you're listening to Beyond the Ring podcast. And today we're going to discuss the newest edition of Dark Side of the Ring in the shadow of Grizzly Smith. So, this was a very unpleasant and grim kind of a documentary, you can say. Very dark issue that was being discussed. And Grizzly Smith, if you don't know, is the father of Jake the Snake Roberts, and he was an active wrestler in 50s, 60s, and 70s. And Jake the Snake Robert was in late 70s, 80s, and 90s, and he became one of the one of the one of the one of the liked wrestler of 90s generation because of his that persona of snake that he brings upon into the ring. So this was a very dark documentary. So before we get into the discussion of this documentary, please be sure to like this video, share this with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more wrestling content and reviews and documentary reviews like this. So we get into this discussion then. So the documentary focused upon the Grizzly Smith wrestler who was wrestled during the late 1950s, throughout 1960s and 70s as well. So he's a father of three: Sam Houston, Rockin' Robin, his daughter, and Jake the Snake Roberts. So the documentary actually focused on his father and the experience that and the challenges and the trauma that they faced during their childhood and up until their adulthood as well. You can say where they were experiencing disturbing things that they were discussing about. So this was a very kind of a disturbing kind of a documentary that if you listen to, nothing to be happy about, more about shame about listening to the story actually. So he has a good wrestling career, but that was not only the story that he was confined for. He was also outside of the ring, his controversy and the things that he was doing, and his was another thing. And it was this major highlight point of this documentary that they were going to discuss upon, and the viewers learned upon that. So the children's actually initially introduced them who they are, and they actually live about in a distance, they say. And they didn't live in a home or something because of their father's nature, and kind of a angry or a pissed off father, that he has no mutual support from his father for any children. But Sam Houston actually said that he was being proud father of his child because he seemed his father as a superman, because there's a reason to that as well. We can see, I will discuss upon that as well. So Houston actually idolized his father until his passing, as he says. And then we put upon some experiences, some kind of introduction or the details about their wrestling career. So Sam Houston, if you know, he was also a wrestler, and he was quick, active, and a speed wrestler. I haven't watched his any of the wrestling or something, because I don't know about him. But I only know about Jake the Snake Robert and his daughter as well. In the late 90s, she was a she actually wrestled in WWF. So she had his name decided upon by Vince McMahon as Rockin' Robin. So she actually said that if it was Rotten Robin, that would have been fun. And then we saw all the children actually became wrestlers and had their strengths and weaknesses that were discussed upon. And Smith is the Smith's biological son actually is Richard, and also known as Richard actually, and he was also wrestler. And he said that he didn't want to travel, nor didn't want to the lifestyle. So actually he didn't get to the wrestling, so he was not a wrestler actually. So my bad. So he was not a wrestler. He didn't want to have the travel schedule or the life of a wrestler. So he was not into this, and he actually was at a very young age put onto a hostel that he was living. So he was very far away from this kind of thing. that she said. And meanwhile, Jake Roberts enjoyed this kind of lifestyle, and he was a very great wrestler that we actually seen. And Sam Houston actually, according to Jim Cornette, says that he was a solid technical wrestler, and Jake Roberts understood the mental aspect of professional wrestling and had that verbal aspect down. And I agree with Jim Cornette because he had Jake Roberts had an aura, and his character was not kind of and not kind of you could see many kind of fancy move or something. He just does the simple moves, but with his character and his facial expressions and his whole kind of a personality, he actually make people love about him. And one of the one of the best superstars in 90s and 80s history of wrestling, I would say. So Robert says that he made Jim Cornette actually believed that Robert made fans believe that he was a snake in the grass, and Smith was resistant to the idea of Roberts getting into wrestling actually. As Grizzly Smith didn't think about that Jake Roberts would be getting into wrestling, and Roberts said that he didn't his father didn't motivated or didn't have that kind of go get that dude kind of attitude to his son. He was always demotivating, and he didn't like him actually. He didn't discuss upon any good things about his son, and he hated his father as well, as Jake Roberts said. And this was the reason why Jake Roberts actually got into the wrestling, as he actually said in the initial minutes of this documentary. So Grizzly Smith actually said that he about Grizzly Smith is already died. He was died in 2010, and these things were being told by his sons. All of the main interviews and interviewees were these guys, three sons of them, of Grizzly Smith. And Grizzly Smith actually previously worked in an oil field. Some details and some introduction about his wrestling career now. And Smith met someone that was involved in wrestling who believed that he could be a good wrestler. And Smith actually bet some people of for the money if they could double punch or double if they could punch over him in the stomach, and they could over or they could get over or something, kind of a lame or kind of a very different kind of experience, kind of things that he was doing. And he made considerable money out of this, this doing this, as he got into wrestling in that time. And Jake Roberts then says his thoughts about Grizzly Smith and his family. His father and Smith actually saw Grizzly Smith work his family. Like Smith played up the extent of his in-ring injuries and his hatred towards his opponents at home, because Jake's father, Grizzly Smith, actually had his frustration all onto the family members whenever he comes home, and he shows the hatred that he shows towards his opponents in the home. So that creates disturbance, and children actually afraid of that. And Roberts actually recalled crying himself to sleep on multiple nights, believing that his father's feud with his opponents were real. So he definitely was coping with some serious mental issues, and having not to differentiate between the real and real character and the real life character and the character that kayfabe character that he's playing. So he was not able to differentiate upon him. So the feelings of his character was getting into the life of his personal life as well. So that created a very bad kind of environment in the home actually. So didn't have because of that good times and all. So Jim Cornette then actually recalled upon then they focused upon Jim Cornette recalling jokes about Grizzly Smith in the locker room, and every joke regarding his father was in terms of being of Grizzly Smith was being in terms of younger girls, and which Cornette saw as some strange situation and strange incidents. And as a young man in wrestling at that point, Cornette didn't know what was being played out in the Grizzly Smith's life outside of the ring. So then we saw a new interviewee getting introduced, Baby Doll, and she has married to Sam Houston from 1986 to 1994, and she's also known as Baby Doll. And she actually recalled a road trip with Grizzly Smith, his father. not his father, Sam Houston's father, you can say, and where he picked up a teenage girl at a point in a road trip that would travel them into very long. They were very going very long on the road, and she was very skeptical what he was doing, kind of, and her parents would have waved goodbye as her car rode off. In time, actually, Baby Doll learned the seedy details of Smith's life that he says because she felt something fishy is going on with Sam Houston's father, Grizzly Smith, because of what incident that took place. Because the teenage girl actually had them on the road trip. So that was very strange to see for as Baby Doll said. So then we got to Jake Roberts telling his childhood things that he actually experienced upon, and this was so grim and so very bad to listen upon, man. Robert said that he did away with the name, that his real name is Orlean Smith Jr., and his ring name is Jake the Snake Roberts, as it would have been too painful otherwise, as he says. To him, he says that the person hasn't grown since he was 12 or 13 years old, he says, because of the trauma because of that trauma bubble that he was into, that was so hard to get out of. So he's still into that kind of a trauma of when he was in 12 or 13 years old, from his father's experience and all. He was more comfortable as Jake Roberts, as he says, the character he plays, and would use it as an escape from his troubled past. And actually also said upon, as in this discussion, that he actually get into the wrestling because of this kind of things, because he didn't want to be a part of this experience. So he actually think about that the wrestling would be giving him more motivation and more kind of a more kind of a way to earn money, to live a good life. So that's what he wants. So because of his experiences that he got, so that is the reason. And he actually that's why he's told upon that he was more comfortable with the Jake Roberts that he was playing upon in the wrestling industry. So Robert's mother was 13 when he was born, and some focus upon his mother, making Smith a pedophile. When they divorced, the children were actually passed around to different homes actually. So he was a irresponsible father as well, because his children were, as and the start of the documentary I said, were living very way apart. One was in a home, a hostel or something, and one was in another home, one was in another home, kind of stuff that they were living. So their life was not going good, and Roberts said that he would soon move in with his grandmother after because of this, until her passing, until his mother's passing. At age 11, Roberts moved in with his father and his new wife, Marcia. Yeah, and his new wife Marcia, and Smith's new wife. This is the second wife of Marcia. So he was not a good family man or something. That's what we see, that we have seen in this kind of this discussion as we go forward. So Smith's new wife would actually, according to Robert, says play games that weren't so funny to him, and Robert was confined to his father about this, which she caught. Later on, she would beat Roberts with a cloth hanger and a fly sweater. So he was not only the trauma, but he was very intimidated and very harmed upon as well. Very yeah, very uh, physical assault as well. So Smith was completely aware of this, as he was doing the same thing to his sisters as well. So there was a point which in this documentary which really got very bad and very unpleasant to listen about, because his father is doing this, and Robin recalled being sexually assaulted by her father actually. And it was she actually described upon that it started when she was 8 or 9 years old. According to her, she says about 1 month prior he completely ignored her, not standing to her in the same room as her. One day her mother was gone, her father was home, and Smith called her back to say he loved her. This would lead to the and she actually believed that his father loves her because of prior to the month he didn't talked upon or didn't came upon to see. So she actually thought about that his father loved upon her. So this would lead to the first time he actually the father Grizzly Smith actually put his hands on her, which is in an appropriate way, in an inappropriate way, which she was unable to process. And according to her, it stripped her of her innocence actually. And sexual assault at the hands of her father lasted from kind of 8 to 14 years. So man, from kind of 7 years now. Yeah, 6 years. She told her mother, and the two promptly. She told her mother actually about this, and two actually promptly left her. That how could you not left man after this kind of thing that his father is doing with him, your own daughter. Robin even threatened to shoot actually Smith with his own gun if it ever happened again, as as he as he as he says. So as she says, daughter. So Jolyn, and then we get to the another story, which was Jolyn, Robin's half sister. Robin's half sister was a focus of the episode as well. Jolyn actually asked if Robin felt safe, and Robin believed that Jolyn went through the same abuse at the hands of their father. And 2 weeks later, Jolyn would be kidnapped as well. So the police it got to some investigation by police, while Robin, Richard, and Michael, Robin, Richard, and Sam Houston were at a roller skating rink. They received a call to come home. When they did, they were informed of Jolyn's kidnapping. Richard took it to the hardest because as he was closest to Jolyn, so very bad kind of time that was going on because of their sister being kidnapped. So this was a bad time that was going on for the family. But there was kind of a rumors as well. His father was involved in this. Jolyn was with her infant son Ted when she was abducted by two assailants. And when authorities arrived on the scene, they saw the baby totally fine in his crib, and they would also find some letters reading them to the ex-wife of Jolyn's husband. So she would confess to the kidnapping actually. Ex-wife of Jolyn's husband actually. Jolyn's husband was. Jolin's husband had an ex-wife as well, so she was the one who confessed that she was the one who kidnapped. So she was charged. She claimed that Jolin escaped shortly after the abduction, and this led to a massive investigation, even including a including a psychic. Jolin's body was never recovered because found dead actually, making murder charge as well. It is believed by former chief of police of Tatum, Texas, Carl Gage. So he was also interviewed upon that her body was brought to an incinerator to eliminate any evidence. The only information Smith's children received was from him, and the ex-wife of Jolin's husband was convicted of aggravated kidnapping. So Jolin's husband was the one who was confined to be responsible for convicted for the kidnapping of Jolyn, Robin's half sister. And Robin believed that her father also had some kind of hand as well for Jolyn's disappearance and death. And Robin then thought that Jolyn had information on Smith. Such information could have cost him his career. So it's never been confirmed whether he was involved in this case. Richard suggested taking the case to unsolved mysteries, while Smith was against it because when you are against something, because that's mean that you have something to do with that they think about. According to Richard, he didn't seem to express he didn't seem to express much sadness in regard to the loss of Jolyn. And so this was an experience, very kind of a loss on their family there as well. So this was another experience, that bad experience that they got. And then we got to Jake the Snake Roberts, and he actually took the hate from his real life and brought into his character actually, as he says that his father actually did the complete opposite, that his hate actually in his ring would be displayed in the home, and he actually from the real life hate and his experience, he turned into his character actually. And that's a very big change makeover that he had did. And he used the snake bag as a way to divert attention from him and create fear. Look at the snake bag, said Roberts, and he was one of the intimidating and one of the polarizing character that WWF had at that time. And I actually loved his wrestling as well. However, the snake would surprisingly enough appeal to younger fans, while parents expressed fear over the snake actually. So younger fans was the was the main appeal, but he didn't get the young fans. He sure got the parents' fear actually, and thus Roberts initially was a fan favorite, and he was a fan favorite whenever he comes out in the WWF, as we have seen. And he was one of the successful wrestler that Grizzly Smith, so all the sons we had, all the two of the sons he had and one daughter. And Rockin' Robin's experience then was told about. She would work for the WWF because though her time with her father wasn't done yet at that time, Robin's work would catch the attention of WWF promoter Vince McMahon, who said she threw a punch like a man would. And from there, Robin would begin working for the company, winning the women's championship as well. So, living on her own, Robin received a visit from Smith, and a little girl. Finally, after she was living upon with his father, but they didn't discuss upon this. I thought about he actually lived Smith actually lived upon his daughter and all after they grew up, but he received a visit. Have a visit from Miss Smith, and a little girl came around, and Robin immediately knew the girl was in trouble because he was because if you can understand this thing, Smith had a industry that he used to abduct, and he used to take young children, and he used to assault them in a very inappropriate way. So sexual assault. And living on her, Robin received a visit from Smith and little girl, and Robin immediately knew the girl was in trouble, as she states. And Smith asked Robin to make the girl to stay here, and Robin stayed up with the girl to ask her questions such as if he ever pulled off, or to ask for a kiss or something, because she had the same experience that he said she had. So when Smith left, Robin kept the girl behind, saying he wouldn't be bringing her along anymore. Saying would be bring along anymore, as she says. And Sam Houston was a good hand, which led to an Sam Houston's wrestling career then was focused upon, and he was a good worker in the family, according to Cornette, best worker as he states. And Houston's size kept him from being used in a more prominent sort, because that was a time where, if you know, that big guys kind of get over very quickly, and Houston would develop a drinking problem after some time when the topic of his marriage to the baby doll aroused to Smith. Houston consumed 32 Crown and Cokes as her wife actually say baby doll says. He would rack up multiple DUI offenses, though he initially avoided significant jail time due to his father's influence. So he was being responsible for many kind of offense, but he was being getting escape because of his father's influence. So this was the you can say why Houston liked his father. He actually respected upon his father, and he was proud of his father, because he said upon that in the early minutes of the documentary that he was proud. And this was one of the thing. And eventually, if you do one thing 20 times or 30 times, you would be eventually caught upon. And he initially awarded significant jail time due to his father's influence. And actually, Smith denied that his father had anything to do with it, but you can see that with your own kind of experience and eyes as well. Ultimately, Houston was sent to prison. Sam Houston was sent to prison. His father influence of being unable to help after many times. He was told he would be in prison for 30 years, and during his time in prison, Houston has attempted suicide as well, as he stated. And Jake Roberts would say that the most important thing to him at that time was cocaine, because that was the lifesaver for him, as he says. Being in the limelight allowed him to have some of the best things that he ever dreamed about in his life, to get what he believed he needed, whether it was drugs, or time with women, or anything else associated with a very great life, party life. And Roberts would infamously show up at the Heroes of a wrestling event that was I think it was a WWF event, I think so, in no condition to perform because of uh, because of uh, because of the drug problem that he had. And subsequent public appearance would see him behaving very erratically and very angrily. And as the WWF actually phased out the women's division, Rock and Robin actually developed her own addictions as well. So all of them, if you see, they had their own career, but they actually trapped upon from that trauma, that experience that they had got from the childhood, and they that didn't leave. And only you could say who escaped, you can say, was Jake Roberts, but he also was taking a major drug that he said cocaine was the lifesaver for him, being the limelight when he was. So she would also turn to alcohol following the departure from the company, because they were not focusing anymore on the women's division. She believed that this had more to do with her childhood experience that she has received and ruined her by her father, as she says. And in the last, we saw Grizzly Smith actually passed away due to Alzheimer's disease in 2010, and his biological son and all the children, they took up their views upon, and only I would say Houston was the one who was kind of was crying about him. His biological son Richard was also there. It says that Richard was his sole caretaker until his final days, and from his second wife, I think so. Smith passed away while Houston was in Sam Houston was in prison because he was serving prison. And Smith never apologized for his anything to his children, and all of them said the same thing, that he never apologized for his abuse toward his children, seeing his behavior as completely normal. And Richard was also, that was bad. That's not a thing you can kind of argue upon. And Richard was also never apologized to us for being given up for adoption. And nonetheless, Richard believed that he was lucky for this, as he says, because he was in hostel actually. So that's why he was lucky to have not having experience that this experience that other children's got. So all the children express interest in being closer to one another now. And Roberts and Robin stress the importance of seeking help. A very great advice, and a very great closing to the show, because all of them stressed on the importance of seeking help if you have mental problem, if you are facing this thing. Those that are having this problem currently, or those have been, please get out of this. And Roberts closed the show actually with a please seek help, and you should talk about this thing if you are experiencing that. All of the children said. And Roberts closed the show with the episode with the advice, never ever ever give up. And this was a great advice, and we saw a contact number for any support for this kind of thing, if anything happens. So this was a very unraveling documentary, you could say. Many things that was opened upon. I didn't know don't didn't know upon Grizzly Smith who he was. Actually, when I watched, I understand upon he was the father of Jake the Snake Roberts. So this was a very the opening documentary, could say. Lots of information that I didn't know upon, and it was a great, you could say, not a great to listen or something, but you could if you're adult, you could understand about this episode, how it was to unravel this thing. And Dark Side of the Ring and the Voice TV team did a really great job to put the light upon as much as possible on this thing, and closed upon at a very 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 good note for the future children's and future community of this, and the future experiences that people will be getting for that. So I thought about this was a very good documentary. I hope you like this documentary and the explanation of this, and hope you listened all of it. Please leave a like, and be sure to subscribe to my channel for more documentary reviews and wrestling reviews content like this. So if you have not check out my last previous days review on Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling, please do check out that, because that's the content that I do every week. And I hope upon you will be checking out that. Very appreciate that. So please be sure to like this video, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more wrestling content like this. And I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, be safe, stay energetic, peace.